South Africans are slowly adapting to life following the dropping of the last COVID-19 regulations, including indoor mask wearing after over 2 years. It comes as infections slow in the country. Some, however, are questioning whether it's the right decision given the low levels of vaccinations in the country. We're now joined by African Health Research Institute's Deputy Director, Professor Thumbi Ndung'u. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. We talk about the low rate of vaccines, and we see, the change of approach, I think perhaps best personified in the way that corporate South Africa has responded. At one point, it seemed almost inevitable that employees would all be forced to, vaccinate, that there would be a harsh implementation of vaccine mandates. But just a couple of months back, some corporates started saying, actually, you don't have to get vaccinated, you don't have to wear masks, and now we're here.
Yeah, I think, thank you very much, Kathy, for having me on the show, and good evening to the viewers. I think we have entered, a state of personal responsibility, I think, in public health, and where everybody, I think, is realizing that the best way to implement successful public health programs is to actually leave it, provide the right information for people to make the decision, and then leave it to actually make those decisions rather than instituting mandates, particularly given where we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, where although we have low vaccination rates, we also have had Omicron variant, which spreads very, very fast and very quickly and has extensively spread within the population. So we have a situation where almost everybody in the population has either been exposed to the virus or has had vaccination, and so they have some level of immunity. And I think that given the difficulty in implementing and mandating additional public health strategies to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, I think it was almost inevitable that we were going to come to this moment where we provide the information, but leave it to individuals and corporations to implement those measures.
And that seems to be part of what has caused confusion, at least for some people, that you have government that has dropped the mask mandate completely, but you still have private organizations that are asking people to keep their masks on. There's some restaurants that still, have the requirement of a mask on their doors.
Yeah, and I think it's not surprising, Kathy, that we have that level of confusion and a little bit of uncertainty in the beginning, because obviously we have been used to people wearing masks over the last almost 2.5 years. And I think we were always going to have a situation where once the mandate to wear masks was dropped, people would question whether this is actually the right thing to do. I think it's a difficult one because even when people have been wearing masks, the level of compliance has not been particularly excellent. You could see that some people are obviously adherent to mask wearing, particularly indoors. But you also, if you went to a lot of social gatherings, you would notice that some people are wearing their masks, were not wearing them properly, or would take them off momentarily and briefly. And so, it becomes a question of whether all these measures are actually effective when people are not using them correctly. There's no question that masks work, but I think we are in an era where we have a vaccine that is available, and vaccines, many of them, and there's no doubt that vaccination is the first and the most effective public health strategy to stem the spread of the virus. And so I can understand the confusion. I can understand the feeling that maybe we should continue to wear masks indoors. And I think that for those people who feel very vulnerable, I think that should still be encouraged. But I can also understand why the government has come to this stage where they want to leave it to individuals and corporations to implement these public health measures as they deem fit, based on their resources and what they're able to convince the public to do.
Of course, some may find comfort in the fact that South Africa is not the only country on the continent to move in this direction.
And that's correct. So you see that in most other places also people have dropped the use of masks, face masks. And what we have seen, interestingly, in most African countries, although the data sometimes is questionable, is that we haven't had significant increases in the number of cases. And even in the countries where we have had spikes or waves of the virus going up, what we have seen is that we have had less hospitalization and less deaths compared to earlier on in the epidemic. And this is a reflection of the fact that almost everybody now has some level of immunity, either due to the vaccine or due to natural immunity of having been exposed to the virus. And so I think overall, although we have to be extremely cautious and be ready to reinstitute should the numbers start going up, particularly if we get new variants, which are much more pathogenic, then that would call for a reinstatement of the mask mandate. But I think for now, this is the right decision to let people make this decision and particularly encourage people to get vaccinated, because that's the surest way to slow down the spread of the virus at this stage.
All right. The African Health Research Institute's Deputy Director, Professor Thumbi Ndung'u.